Hi everyone, welcome to Legally Yours. I'm here again with the incredible Sylvan Browne from FB Rice, and in this video we're actually going to delve a little bit deeper into the topic of patents and why you should register and what the benefits are and what the actual process is. So thank you so much for joining me, Sylvan.
It's a pleasure, Karen.
All right, let's get into it. So how do you actually identify whether an invention should be patented or not? What's the criteria?
Yeah, great question. So one of the first things we'll probably look at is it the kind of thing that is patentable? Because not all good ideas are patentable. Some could be a little bit too abstract or too conceptual. I mean, typically you're looking at something, some kind of technology or substance or material, ideally, and that's what most of patents are really about. So that's kind of the first check that we would do. Now, assuming it is the kind of thing that is patentable, the next question we're going to ask is it new?
Okay.
So that's one of the basic requirements. As of when you file your patent application, it needs to be new.
Yes.
And so then, and one of the things that people often do, by the way, is they disclose their own invention. And so it might not be new as of when they want to file their patent application because they've gone and tried to market it and go out there and spruik it.
Okay.
So it is key to try to keep that newness for yourself until you file a patent application. Now, after that, the next thing is, let's say it is new, then you got to look at, well, what is it, the thing that makes it new, is that clever, is that inventive?
Yes.
So you also need not just the newness, but an inventive step in order to be able to get a patent at the end of the process.
Yes.
And then one of the other key things that I like to get people thinking about is, even if sure, you can file a patent application, but does it make sense to do so? Because again, not all good ideas are going to be commercially, it might not make sense to actually file a patent application because the cost of the patent application in thousands of dollars could outweigh the margin that you're expecting over the short term. And you might just find that it's going to take too long to get a return on your investment in the patent costs. So again, that's another question I'd like to be addressing with people really early on is, are you going to make enough money here to justify the patent costs?
Fantastic. Okay, so let's assume that it's a new idea that I've got, that it is an invention and it's inventive, and that it makes sense to actually register it. What's the process from there?
Right. Well, there's a lot of different options to start with. So I'll go with the one that is the most common, and that is starting with what we call a provisional patent application. And that provisional application really just starts the process. It won't get granted as a patent, but when you file it, what you're going to get is you're going to get a priority date, and you're going to get a serial number, and you'll get an internationally recognized starting point. And in that provisional application, you're going to be describing everything about your invention. You're going to have some drawings in there. You're going to have pages and pages of text, because that's going to be this real definition and full exploration of what your invention is in that technical sense. How does it all work?
Yes.
And then after that, once you've filed that provisional application, your starting point, typically you're going to have about 12 months to go ahead and figure out what you want to do with it. Am I going to file it internationally? Do I want to preserve my rights internationally? Do I only want the US, or do I just want Australia? And so in that 12 months, you can think about it. The typical thing, and most companies do this, is they'll file what's called an international patent application.
Okay.
And they chain that to the provisional application, and to keep that process going. Now, that international application gives you another year and a half of thinking time before you need to pull the trigger on the significant costs of filing into wherever. If you want to file in the US, you want to file in Europe, Japan, China, Australia, wherever. Those are significant costs. And so that year from the initial provisional application, then the extra year and a half that you get when you file the international application, that's 2.5 years where you can figure out, is this a commercial goer, really? Is it worth spending a fair bit more money on? And assuming the answer is yes, then you take that international application and you convert it into what's called the national phase. And at that point, that's when you say, okay, now I want this to be treated by the US Patent Office as a US application. And so we're filing the national phase application in the US, and hopefully take that through and that gets granted. And at the same time, you go, okay, now I want this to be converted into a European application. and now I want it to become an Australian application. All those separate national phase applications.
Yes.
Because there's no one universal patent.
Yeah.
You have to actually file in every place that you want to get a patent.
Okay.
So once you've done that, then you've got to take it through the examination process for each of those separate countries. I know Europe's not a country, it's a region, but we won't get into that.
Yes.
And then every country has different requirements. So the US practice is its own thing. Europe's got its own thing. Australia's got its own thing. There's some commonalities around what we talked about: newness, inventiveness. Is it the kind of thing that's patentable?
Yes.
But around that, there's all sorts of procedural differences.
Yes.
And then once you get it through that examination process, then you're going to get it granted.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a lengthy process, but well worth it. So let's get on to the last question. Why is it so important to actually register it? So if you've got all those things, what is the actual importance of it? What does it do?
Right. Well, and that's a great question too, because honestly, one of the things that I do say to clients is that patents can be money-hungry beasts. They really can be, because you have to keep throwing money at them to keep them alive. And so you've always got to make the decision of, do I keep going with this process in view of what it's costing me? But for the right kind of thing, it's massively important for your business. And there's probably the key function of patents is that they can exclude others from copying your invention. So if you've got some new invention that's critical to your business or plays a role in an important and valuable product, then you want to stop people from being able to kind of come in and erode your market share around that. So that's probably one of the keys. And aside from that, though, they're business assets, and they can be used you can license them, you could assign them, as in sell them. There's all sorts of ways that you can monetize those assets as well. Another thing that a benefit out of it is that you can be seen to be innovative, and you can be seen to actually have some weaponry at your disposal to use against others that might challenge you, on the business playing field. Say, okay, well, hey, we might not want to mess with that company because they've got X number of patents, and we know that they've had a track record of actually using them against people. So, it's a deterrent potentially, or at least some kind of weaponry that you could use. Now, I guess depending on where the company is at, for startups, for example, intellectual property is pretty key. And if you are looking at an exit strategy that's, say, 5 to 10 years, then you are going to want to file those patent applications if you can, for the right kind of products. And other investors or purchasers are going to be looking at whether or not you've got your house in order. Have you taken those necessary steps to try to protect your business and those key assets?
Yes.
And you could find, if you're trying to sell your business, it makes a difference in multiples if you've got key IP protection around those key services and products.
Yes, absolutely. So I think, certainly it's so incredibly important, like you say, even at that startup phase, because if you are in the long-term view looking at getting investment, they do a lot of due diligence on you. And like you say, if you haven't got your house in order, they're not going to take you seriously, and it can cost you.
You won't get the valuation you think. Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely. Yeah. So look, if this is resonating with you and you would like to have a complimentary consult with Sylvan, you can actually go to our website and find him there at legallyyours.com.au. Or if you'd like to learn more about the services that Sylvan provides at FB Rice, you can head to fbrice.com.au. Did you have a final word, Sylvan, at all that you'd like to say?
Well, I could tell a bit of a story if you'd like about
absolutely.
Why patents are important too. So, one of the things that I found out, and this was while I was practicing in Canada, I was there for 4 years. There was a case that was going on, and people probably remember the BlackBerry was the key wireless device back in the 2000s. And there was a company that came along and said, and they'd had patents on early wireless email inventions, and they were called NTP. And they only employed lawyers, and they only owned patents. And they sued Research in Motion, which was the maker of the BlackBerry, for patent infringement. And they took it from the lower court levels, and they went up on appeal. And, they had enough of a strong case, and the judge kind of signaled that it was probably going to go in favor of NTP, this small company that only employed lawyers. And so there was this prospect that Research in Motion was going to get shut down, and the BlackBerry would become illegal in effect, and it would be banned from the US.
Yes.
And so what ended up happening is that Research in Motion settled for only $612 million, paltry sum. So this tiny company that only employed lawyers got a nice war chest. So they were able to monetize those assets very effectively. And meanwhile, Research in Motion's share price shot up because everybody thought, well, that's an absolute bargain.
Yeah.
Imagine what could have happened if they'd been shut down in the US. So I think that illustrates how powerful patents can be and how valuable they can be for the right kinds of things.
Gosh, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that story. And it is incredibly important. And we're so excited to have an expert like you in our community and being able to assist the startups and the businesses that we have come through our platform. So thank you. And thank you so much for watching.